Okay, hello, my friends. Let's get this set up here. Okay, we're going to connect with our pals on Instagram, get the show on the road. Welcome to today's live stream. So today I had planned to talk about the magic of transformational sleep and how to achieve it in your own life. I had the best time talking to Dr. Michelle Oken recently. She is a behavioral psychologist who specializes in sleep, of all things, and she dropped so much good information on not just how to get a better night's sleep, but all the different things that can change for us. They're probably not even aware of when we do get more sleep, including like how your brain works. Systemic inflammation, believe it or not, is associated with not getting enough sleep. And that can create all kinds of problems in your body, your mood, your brain. And so it's very important. And one of I think the takeaways that was most fascinating for me is, how many things that we think of as being problems that we solve with therapy, right? Major depressive disorder, anxiety, ADHD, that we can go down this psychological/medical route towards treatment, not realizing that it is actually an underlying sleep disorder that is causing the problem. And so you can spend hundreds, thousands of dollars, months of your life sitting in therapy, talking to somebody like me, or taking, ironically, stimulant medication to treat ADHD, which can actually make it harder to sleep, which then can exacerbate the symptoms of ADHD that you are trying to manage. So anyway, it's very important to get to the bottom of whether or not some things that you may think could be psychiatric or psychological issues could in fact be caused by not getting enough sleep. So anyway, on today's live stream, I am so happy to talk with you if sleep is something that you want to work on. But also, as I was putting this together today, I was like, I think this is a topic that's probably interesting to people and that's something that we all want to work on, but I don't know if there's going to be questions about this on a live stream. So I also do want to open the floor to any questions that you might have if you're just kind of dropping in. Certainly happy we could talk about what sleep is looking like for you these days, or anything else going on. So just wanted to open things up. But how are you guys feeling today? I shared in a story earlier that I happen to be feeling great because uncharacteristically, I got 8 hours of sleep last night. And I don't these days, and I think I'm actually okay when I'm getting somewhere between 6 and 7 hours of sleep. That's normal for me, and I don't have any problems with that. But today I got 8, and I feel good. How'd you guys sleep last night? I know we have a lag. I will put on lip gloss while I wait for your responses. Anyone? And so again, let you guys chime in about what sleep is looking like for you these days. And also, again, just opening the floor. If there's other stuff that you guys want to talk about during our time together, you have me until 12:30, and I am happy to talk about whatever you would like today. Again, this week's podcast was on the topic of sleep, but again, I don't know if people have questions about that. So I'm really happy to know whatever is going on with you and what you would like to talk about. I'm at your service. Would anybody like to share what sleep has been like for them lately? Is it working? Not working? If you're just joining, welcome. Today, our official topic is the transformational power of sleeping and how to get more of it. I think, too, an interesting aspect is how to determine if maybe sleep issues are creating problems for you that you may not realize are related to sleeping. So we could talk about that. But also, I know that this is not I don't know. I don't know how many people have questions about this. So I'm also happy to talk about anything that you guys want to talk about during our time together today. What's on your mind these days? Hi. Thank you for joining. I'm a professional therapist. I can hold an awkward silence longer than any of you can, I bet. So. Oh, thank you. Here, let me pull up this comment. I appreciate you sharing this. Uh-oh, I lost my cursor. Here we go. Hi, good to see you again. Comment is, I'm someone who has struggled with nightmares for years, and as a child, I had night terrors as well as sleepwalking. Well, I mean, a follow-up question that I would have for you, and I hope this is okay to ask. If it is not okay to ask, you just go ahead and ignore me. Do you have a trauma history? Because the reason why I ask is that sometimes when we have unprocessed / unresolved trauma, I mean, one of the, not a bug, it's a feature, is to have nightmares about it. Is that true for you? And you don't have to go into details about that, certainly, especially not in a public forum. But and if it is true, I mean, part of the good news is that with treatment, it can be resolved. Sometimes, I mean, sleeping and dreaming has a lot of different functions for us, neurologically, psychologically. But part of it is that it is part of the way that our brain actually processes information. And when we have unresolved trauma, or really any kind of like unfinished emotional business, your brain will be presenting things to you in dreams as a way of trying to process the stuff that maybe it hasn't had the opportunity to do yet during a more active conscious phase, but that need is there. So I do wonder if that could be potentially something that's going on. Can anybody else relate to that? Who else has nightmares? Betty? Yeah. Okay. Well, that is helpful to know. Here, I'll pull this up for everybody too. So, yeah. So, well, here, wait a minute. Why isn't my thing working? So the response is that there's actually complex trauma. Yeah. And so, understandable here. I'm not going to leave that comment up, but yeah, understandable. And certainly it can be adaptive, but, I do wonder if it may be worth your time to, particularly, I mean, I don't know if nightmares are problematic for you, but if they're happening regularly, it could just be your body's way of telling you that maybe there's a little bit more work to be done there. And there are some highly effective trauma treatments that are really good at helping your brain do that reprocessing work. So things like EMDR, exposure therapy, because the thing with trauma is that when we go through a traumatic life experience, it actually stores that memory in a different way that's not really a memory. A regular memory, there's like, it's coherent, kind of tells a story, we can access it, but a traumatic experience, it gets encoded in your brain. That happens in a different part of your brain, and we experience it differently. There can be fragmented, there can be details. It's also just associated, quite frankly, with a lot of emotions. So we often feel the feelings associated with that trauma, and sometimes in a pretty intrusive way, right? Like we don't feel safe when we are going through life because of these feelings kind of coming at us. And so an adaptive response to this is actually to insulate ourselves psychologically from experiencing that intrusive re-experiencing, I guess I should say. And so then in trauma treatment, how that works is that you have opportunities to go in a very safe and organized way through re-experiencing, and also particularly if you use some brain stimulation techniques that access the trauma that is stored in one part of your brain and intentionally, so I kind of pull it out of there and move it over into a different part of your brain. That doesn't make the crappy memories go away, but it takes the energy out of it, and it turns a traumatic memory into something that is a lot more like a regular crappy memory and not a trauma response. And so in doing so, it can also change our experience with dreams, because like we've moved it to a different part of the brain. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do that. I think unfortunately, many people who are trauma survivors, some people are lucky enough and privileged enough to have gone through evidence-based trauma-focused treatment. That has been very helpful for them, and it's worked. Some people, even though they've been in therapy, we talk about this a lot on the show, like not all therapy is the same. And if you have therapy with somebody who really isn't specialized in this and isn't utilizing some of the techniques that I'm talking about, it may not do what that function is around like moving it around in your brain. So I just wanted to put that out in front of you. And then additionally, particularly with complex trauma, it can be really helpful to have a second pass. Like maybe even if you did receive treatment in an earlier time in your life, particularly if you're having things like dreams coming up, it's okay to kind of go back through that again and say, okay, what unfinished business could still be in there, because you deserve to have peace. Yeah. Okay. I hope that was helpful. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. I kept talking. So here's a follow-up comment, that you've grown to accept the dreams, that you wake up and you feel startled, unrelated, but you also love horror movies, read in research that this can be a form of post-traumatic growth. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Freud was aware of this and called it repetition compulsion, and that we have different ways of reconnecting with things that are familiar with us. And it could be that it is a form of post-traumatic growth, and it's a way of developing a relationship that feels more manageable and in control related to things that are scary, and to even enjoy that to a degree. So I don't know. That's cool though. And it sounds like, you've been thinking about it, the motivation to watch them, because you can make meaning from them, and learn from the dark stories. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's not an overshare. Like I asked you how you were sleeping, so we are having an honest conversation. I love it. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I could see why that darkness feels like something that would be important for you to explore, make meaning. And also, too, what has been really interesting related to the connection between sleep and trauma is that, and nightmares specifically, is that there can be a very interesting type of trauma work and healing that may be most helpful to do with a facilitator, like somebody who could do this with you, because I certainly wouldn't put you in a scary situation or a re-traumatizing situation. But there's some research that shows that if you have opportunities in a nightmare, almost like a lucid dream situation, in order to take control of the situation and essentially rewrite the story in your dream. So if you're being chased by a monster, and usually the monster gets you, or right when it's going to get you, you wake up, like you don't have the opportunity in that storyline to be your own hero, so to speak. But there's a type of therapy that can assist in like waking yourself up within the dream, the lucid dream, and being like, wait a minute, monster. No. And I don't know, flying away or fighting back and winning and being victorious. And through those dream experiences, you can actually have a very healing process that can do some of that emotional processing work too. I have found that research interesting. That is certainly not a specialty of mine. But anyway, I just wanted to share. Okay. You guys, thank you so much for joining. So today, if you are just connecting with us, we are officially talking about sleeping, how to get more of it. We've been having a very interesting conversation with one of our friends about the function of nightmares and trauma and how that all can work together related to sleep. But so I'm happy to hear anything else about like how you guys are sleeping or things that might feel helpful or interesting for you for us to talk about on this topic or others. And so I've been talking to my friend Sirius here, and I'm going to scroll back and see what else is going on with you guys. Okay. Ooh, thank you for sharing. Okay, I'm going to pull up this comment. All right. Sassy Money, thanks for being here today. You experienced something very traumatic surrounding your marriage. 2.5 years later, your brain is adjusting back to normal. It feels like torture most nights. And you've told your husband it feels like you need intense therapy, much stronger than talk therapy. Boy, you bring up such a good point. And thank you for bringing this up because, I think an unrecognized type of trauma that does not get enough, like, just airspace in our collective life experience is the reality of betrayal trauma or relational trauma. Like the things that we experience in our relationships with other humans, particularly those that we have a strong attachment to, are quite traumatic. And that is not a formally recognized trauma. Like if you look in the DSM, part of the criteria of a trauma is that it was very like life-threatening, violent, your life was in danger, you watched somebody else. That is part of the criteria. And so if you go through something that you experience as being quite traumatic, but it doesn't have that component, it will essentially get blown off by most mental health professionals as not really being PTSD because it's like missing that piece. But the reality is that people will have residual symptoms of this, sometimes for a very long time. That includes things like re-experiencing intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, memories, feeling very unsafe in neutral situations, and this elevated physiological response that can absolutely keep you up at night. And so, of course, it's completely understandable that this would disrupt your sleep. And again, like we were talking with our friend, Sirius Isaiah, that this can be a sign that your body, your brain, your mind is saying, hello, I have unfinished emotional business with this thing that happened. And particularly with relational stuff. I don't know what the story is there, but you're committed to the relationship. People are like, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. We need to move on. You're like, okay. And so we try to move on, but that is not actually how our brains work. Just because we want to move on does not mean that there has been that literally neurological processing that your brain requires to be able to move on. And because of that, you will be having these residual symptoms. So, you I think mentioned that you had done some talk therapy, and that, you know, your emotional guidance system is like, maybe I need something stronger. And yeah, you know, again, love therapy, love therapists, and a lot of therapists are practicing this kind of standard issue talk therapy, you know, tell me how you feel about that, that is not really organized around a goal or how are we going to like change your brain in this way. And the world needs general practitioner therapists, right? Like, so you go to a general practitioner doctor and they can x-ray a broken arm, they can give you an antibiotic for something, you know, like they do all the things a little bit because we need that. And a lot of therapists are like that. And when it comes to specialized things like trauma treatment or couples and family therapy, like a lot of people don't know that those are highly specialized things. And that if you show up at a general practitioner's office and you have cancer, like that's not the right person to see because they know like this much about cancer, like, right? So they need to refer. And I think many times a lot of therapists don't even realize this, particularly if they haven't gone deeply into one of these specializations. And so my advice for you would be to look for somebody who specializes in evidence-based, trauma-focused work utilizing systems that we know actually work. And so you would look for something like EMDR or exposure therapy. And also there is a cognitive behavioral trauma-focused treatment that can also be very effective. However, all effective trauma-focused work has a highly experiential, exposure-related component. And if it doesn't have that, it isn't going to do that deeper processing work. And I know that it can be very challenging to find somebody who really is specialized. I do have an article on my site. Let's see if I can share it with you guys. Because as you can tell, I am deeply passionate about this. It makes me crazy when people have such a sincere desire to get help for something and take steps to do that, and then unknowingly connect with the wrong type of practitioner, because there's just not a lot of knowledge in our culture about how to connect with the right therapist or the right type of treatment. You know, people think of, well, therapy as like this global blanket thing, and it is quite specialized and quite specific. So if you go to my website, growingself.com, here, I'll just share this. Come to growingself.com, and I keep a free resources section. Here, how do I share this comment with everybody? Can I do this here? I think so. Well, I think that I'll share it to Instagram. Oops. Oh no, what did I just do? Okay. Did I just end my live stream? I don't know. Something weird just happened. Anyway, but so the link, growingself.com, on my website, if you right on the main nav, I keep a free resources section with a lot of just these informational articles that I've put together for the purpose of helping the general public educate themselves so that you can make informed decisions about some of this type of thing. So if you go to this page, there's an article that I keep on there called Evidence-Based Therapy. You know what? I might even be able to share my screen with you guys. How do I do this? Can I do this? I don't know. It'll probably mess things up. But anyway, so my website, growingself.com, free resources, and then why evidence-based practice matters. It will talk you through a lot of the different types of treatments, different types of professionals, what it means to have an evidence-based practice, and can help you make decisions with that, I hope. And then additionally, I do keep an article on there around how to find a good therapist that might also be helpful for you as you make some of these decisions. Okay, but thanks so much for bringing that up. And, oh, wait, let's see. Can I try this again? Thank you, One Blonde Lawyer. I appreciate your encouragement. I just tried it again. Did you guys get that in the chat? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so just a ton of resources. And also, if you guys have questions, I'm always happy to do that, because I think there's just such an opportunity cost. Like, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. And then if you're not working with the right person, anyway, it bothers me. Okay. So, let's see, other questions or comments. Again, you guys, if we're just joining us, I have 4 more minutes, but we're officially talking about sleep. But interestingly, this has turned into a very cool conversation, I think, about the relationship between the way we're sleeping and unresolved trauma, to be completely honest with you. Like, here, I'll just put this link yet. So with the resources for you guys, but that I think has kind of been the pattern today, and I'm just so glad that you guys are bringing this up, because a primary source of sleeping issues can be unresolved trauma. And you know what's so interesting? I think that on Monday's podcast, when I was talking to the sleep expert, who is very knowledgeable, by the way, and is definitely worth checking out, I don't know if trauma is something that we covered specifically. And now I'm just thinking to myself, that is something that we should talk about. So maybe I could even see about, I'm going to make a note to myself about unresolved trauma and sleeping issues. Okay. Any other quick last questions or comments? Here's one from our friend, Sirius again. Do you think the issue is talk therapy engages with the frontal lobe and not really areas like the amygdala and the hippocampus? Yes. Oh my God. Gold star student right here. That's exactly what it is. Now, talk therapy, it can be very experiential, particularly if you have someone who is good at helping kind of push you into contact with feelings. And we can absolutely be reconnecting with old memories. But you're right. I mean, generally speaking, when we are in our language center, we are articulating things, we are thinking about what we're thinking about and how we feel. And so it is a more intellectual endeavor. We're kind of telling the story about something when we're talking about something. And so the types of experiential therapies and the more like physical therapy. So somatic therapy can be another one, particularly if it's like pre-verbal trauma, but EMDR, exposure therapy, it isn't really a verbal endeavor. Like even EMDR, like you might not be doing a lot of talking in there at all, but you are having an experience that is activating different parts of your brain in an emotionally safe container. And then after that experience, you may be talking about it, verbalizing it, articulating it in order to move it to that more thinking part of your mind. But you're absolutely right. And I think that in talk therapy, it can be especially with the trauma stuff, like I think it can be easy to avoid some of this. It can be easy to hide from some things, but also to kind of be so intellectual that we're not really accessing some of the deeper parts here. I'm just looking at some other comments. Oh, thank you so much. I am glad to know that the podcasts have been helpful with a recent personal issue. I'd love to hear more about, I mean, not that you want to go into details, but like what was the general topic? And I'll potentially make more of those. Another comment here from our friend Sage Myers. What if your trauma involves sleep so that sleeping is traumatic on its own? Yeah. Yes. And I certainly don't want to read too much into this, but absolutely. And if you had terrible things happen at night or were woken up from sleep into a terrible situation. Again, the relationship between sleep and trauma, one of the things about trauma is that with any kind of trauma, when we are in a situation that is a little bit familiar, or potentially a lot familiar to the original trauma, your brain starts sending out big, massive danger signals because it is trying to save you, and it has a deeply encoded I mean, it's really not a memory. It is a imprint of, here there be dragons, like be alert, be vigilant, because this happened again, could happen again. And so you are so right on. And so in this situation, it is incredibly important for you to get trauma treatment because, and like if you listen to Monday's podcast, the episode of Love, Happiness, and Success, if the trauma itself is interfering with your ability to sleep, understandably, what that will also turn into from the presence of ongoing, chronic sleep deprivation is that it will impact the way your brain works. It will impact your cognitive processing. It will impact your ability to regulate emotions. It will lead to psychiatric conditions like anxiety, depression, ADHD that make you feel bad, but also make it that much harder to operate effectively in your life, which it kind of can turn into this downward spiral. Throw some self-medicating kinds of strategies. Again, nobody would blame you into that, but that can really, that's a lot of stuff on the bingo card for not being okay. And particularly if at the core of this, which you say so insightfully, is that a primary trauma related to sleep can then mushroom into all these different things that can show up in a lot of areas of your life. I mean, even irritability and reactivity in relationships. I mean, it can make relationships harder, and having stable, healthy relationships is one of the things that helps, put us back together again on a lot of different levels, particularly if we've been through really scary and traumatic life experiences. So all of this to say that, I'm so glad you have awareness of this, and I sincerely hope that you are connected to a highly effective, I would say, clinical psychologist. So look for somebody with maybe a doctorate, not a master's degree, who specializes in trauma-focused treatment. So I had resources on my site related to how to find a therapist, evidence-based treatment, and I do hope you check those out. Okay, very lastly here, could we share links to the research that I mentioned earlier? I'm a student. I don't have those links, honestly. Like if I were to try to find them for you, I would literally Google. Let's see, what would I Google? I would look for rewriting dreams, taking control of dreams. Like something related to rewriting the story of dreams. Google around for a little while. I bet you'll find it and share it with me. I would love to have it, and maybe we'll do a podcast episode on it. So, and then one last comment. Oh, okay. So the podcast episodes that was helpful, thank you, was related to surviving infidelity and betrayal trauma, and that insight helped you a lot. And I'm so glad, because these are very difficult things and they are traumas. And there's that intersection again with sleep. And then a last comment. I'm glad that hearing how all that was laid out was helpful for you. Okay. You guys, thank you for being here with me today. I love spending this time with you on Thursdays. I'll be back again next week. And in the meantime, let me know if there's anything on your mind, if you want to talk about anything in particular. Thanks for listening to the podcasts, and we'll keep the conversation going. All right. Take care, you guys.